The destruction of the Kren research station sent shockwaves through the Voron Empire. For 10,000 years, they had believed themselves untouchable. They had conquered worlds, enslaved species, and built an empire that stretched across the stars. No one had ever dared to challenge them so directly. Until now. The Voron High Council met again, but this time there was no anger in the chamber. There was fear. Reports came in from across their territory. Human ships had been spotted near a dozen systems. Colonies were evacuating. Military commanders were requesting reinforcements that did not exist. Lord Kryn sat in his chair and listened to the chaos with 4 tired eyes. He was old, older than any other member of the council. He had seen enemies rise and fall over centuries, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans have crossed into the inner systems, a military advisor reported. They are heading toward the capital. How many ships? Lady Van asked. Our sensors show approximately 100. They have lost many vessels, but they continue to advance. 100 ships against our homeworld defenses? Lord Kryn shook his head. That is suicide, even for creatures as mad as these humans. My lord, the advisor hesitated before continuing. Our homeworld defenses have been weakened. We sent most of our fleet to chase the humans across our territory. Only 40 ships remain to guard the capital. Silence fell over the council. 40 ships against 100. For the first time in their history, the Vorons were outnumbered at their own doorstep. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of the Iron Dawn and looked at the planet ahead. It was beautiful in a cold way, covered in cities of crystal and metal that sparkled like jewels. The Voron capital, the heart of the empire that had taken her children. Behind her, Dayan and Jiwoo sat in special chairs designed to keep them safe during battle. They had refused to leave their mother's side, and she had not had the heart to force them. After everything they had been through, they needed to see this end. Admiral, Taiho said from his position, the Voron defense fleet is moving to intercept. 40 ships. 40, Yuna repeated. She almost smiled. They must be very frightened. What are your orders? Yuna looked at her children. Dayan was watching the planet with wide eyes. Jiwoo was holding his sister's hand, as he always did when he was scared. Open a communication channel, Yuna said. All frequencies. I want the entire Voron Empire to hear this. The channel opened. Yuna stood straight and spoke with a voice that carried across light years. This is Admiral Yuna of the human fleet. 3 weeks ago, your empire took my children from their home. You took them because you believed we were weak, because you believed you could do whatever you wanted to us. She paused, letting her words sink in. Look at your capital now. Look at the fleet that stands between us and your throne world. You have 40 ships. I have 100. Your defenses are broken. Your stations are burning. Your people are running. Her voice hardened to steel. I did not come here to destroy your species. I came here for justice. I came here to teach you a lesson that you will never forget. Humans are not specimens. We are not experiments. We are not animals to be captured and studied. We are parents who love our children. Friends who protect each other. Soldiers who fight for what matters. And when you threaten what we love, we become something you cannot defeat. She looked directly into the camera. I offer you one chance. Surrender. Open your borders to investigation. Release every prisoner you have taken from every species. Allow the galaxy to see the truth of what your empire has done. Do this, and we will leave your planet intact. Refuse, and I will burn everything. The communication ended. Yuna waited. The bridge was silent, except for the hum of engines and the soft breathing of her crew. Minutes passed. Then the answer came. Admiral, Hana reported. We are receiving a transmission from the Voron High Council. The image of Lord Kryn appeared on the main screen. He looked old and tired, his 4 eyes filled with something that might have been defeat. "Admiral Yuna," he said slowly, "the High Council has heard your terms. We have debated for many minutes. Some wish to fight to the end, to die with honor rather than surrender to a younger species." He lowered his head. "But I am old. I have seen much, and I understand now what we failed to understand before. Your species is not weak. You are simply different. You value things we do not comprehend. Family, love, the willingness to sacrifice everything for those you care about." He raised his eyes again. "We accept your terms. Our fleets will stand down. Our borders will open. Our prisoners will be released. And the records of our experiments will be made available to all." Yuna felt something release in her chest. A tension she had carried for weeks finally began to fade. "There is one more condition," she said. Lord Kryn nodded wearily. "Name it." "The officers who ordered the capture of my children. The scientists who intended to experiment on them. They will face justice. Human justice." For a moment, Lord Kryn was silent. Then he bowed his head in acceptance. It will be done. The war was over. The human fleet remained in Voron space for 2 more weeks, overseeing the release of prisoners and the opening of secret archives. What they found shocked the galaxy. The Voron Empire had been capturing specimens from dozens of species for thousands of years. Entire civilizations had been destroyed so the Vorons could study their biology. The truth spread across the stars. Other species, emboldened by humanity's victory, began to demand justice for their own losses. The Voron Empire did not collapse, but it changed. It was forced to change. The old ways of conquest and experimentation ended. A new era began. Admiral Yuna became a legend. Songs were written about her. Stories were told. Children across human space learned about the mother who challenged an empire to save her family. But Yuna did not want fame. She wanted only one thing. She wanted to go home. The Iron Dawn arrived at Haven on a sunny morning. The tall grass swayed in the wind, just as it had on the day everything changed. Grandmother Sunja waited on the porch of her small house, tears streaming down her face. Dayan and Jiwoo ran across the field, their laughter filling the air. They threw themselves into their grandmother's arms, and for a long moment, they simply held each other. Yuna walked more slowly. She had changed during these weeks. The weight of command, the burden of loss, the price of victory, all of it showed in her eyes. But when she saw her family together again, she smiled. "We are home," she said. Sunja reached out and pulled her daughter into the embrace. 4 generations of women and 1 brave boy, standing together under a peaceful sky. "You brought them back," Sunja whispered. "You kept your promise." "Always," Yuna said. "I always will." Later, as the sun set over Haven, Yuna sat on the porch with her children. Dan leaned against her shoulder. Jiwoo sat in her lap, already half asleep. The stars began to appear, one by one, filling the sky with light. "Mama," Dan said quietly, "were you scared?" Yuna thought about the question. She thought about the battles, the death, the moments when everything seemed lost. "Yes," she admitted. "I was very scared, but you still came for us." "Of course I did." Yuna kissed the top of her daughter's head. "You are my children. There is nothing in this universe that could stop me from coming for you." Jiwoo stirred slightly in her arms. "The stars are pretty tonight," he murmured. Yun looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the galaxy continued to spin. Empires rose and fell. Species fought and made peace. But here, on this small planet, none of that mattered. What mattered was this moment. This family. This love. The Voron Empire had learned a lesson they would never forget. They had tried to understand humanity through science, through study, through cold analysis. They had measured human strength and found it wanting. They had calculated human numbers and found them small, but they had failed to measure the one thing that truly made humans dangerous: a mother's love for her children, a family's bond that could not be broken, a species that would cross the stars, challenge empires, and burn worlds for the people they loved. The Vorons had wanted to know what humanity was made of. Now they knew, and they would never make that mistake again. As night settled over Haven, Admiral Yuna held her children close and watched the stars. She had fought her war. She had won her victory. She had brought her family home. And in the silence of that peaceful evening, she finally allowed herself to rest. The universe could wait. Tonight, she was just a mother, holding her children, grateful for their warmth against the cold of space. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, new battles to fight. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, there was only love. And that was enough. That was everything. The Kren system was the scientific heart of the Voron Empire. 4 planets orbited a blue star, and on the smallest of them sat the most advanced research station in known space. It had been built 3,000 years ago, and in all that time, no enemy had ever come close to threatening it. Admiral Yuna intended to change that. Her fleet had traveled through 2 weeks of constant battle to reach this point. They had lost 40 ships. Hundreds of humans had died. But the survivors were harder now, sharper, transformed by fire into something dangerous. They had learned to fight the Vorons and win. They had tasted victory, and it made them hungry for more. The Voron defenders at Kren were not ready for what came. "Contact," reported Hana. "Enemy fleet detected. 150 ships defending the system." 150. Taiho muttered. "And we have 160. For the first time, we have more." "Numbers are not everything," Yuna reminded him. "The Voron ships are larger and better armed. But we have something they do not." "What is that?" "Purpose." She stood and addressed her fleet through the communication system. Her voice reached every ship, every crew member, every person who had followed her into hell. "This is it," she said. "Behind those enemy ships is the station where they keep my children, where they keep Daeon and Jiwoo. For 2 weeks, we have fought and bled for this moment. Some of you have lost friends. Some have lost parts of yourselves. But you kept going. You kept fighting, because you understood something important." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This is not just about my family. It is about all our families. It is about every human child who looks at the stars and wonders if they are safe. The Vorons thought they could take whatever they wanted from us. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we show them what happens when you touch humanity's children." The fleet moved forward as one. 160 human ships, filled with people who had left everything behind for this fight. Miners and soldiers, scientists and pilots, all united by a single purpose. The Vorons attacked first. Their weapons filled space with fire and light. The battle began with explosions and screams and the terrible sounds of ships dying. But the humans had learned their lessons well. Captain Taiho led the first wave, his ships diving straight into the enemy formation. They moved with perfect coordination, each captain knowing exactly where to go and what to do. The new weapons that Mireille had built cut through Voron shields, destroying ships that had survived 100 previous battles. Captain Yunji brought her fast attack ships around the side, targeting the larger Voron command vessels. Her crews were young and fearless, dodging enemy fire with skill that seemed impossible. Engineer Mireille stayed behind the main line, directing repair ships and coordinating technical support. When a human ship lost its shields, her teams moved in to restore them. When weapon systems failed, Her engineers found ways to bring them back online. And at the center of it all, Admiral Yuna commanded from the Iron Dawn. She watched the battle unfold on her tactical display, moving pieces like a master playing chess. She had spent 20 years learning how to win impossible fights. Now she used everything she knew. Third group, target their left side. Second group, draw their fire. First group, push through the center. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships burned and died on both sides. The vacuum of space filled with debris and bodies. But slowly, steadily, the human fleet pushed forward. The Vorans had never faced enemies like this. Enemies who would not retreat. Enemies who seemed to grow stronger when they should be falling apart. The Voran commander watched his fleet crumble with horror in his 4 eyes. He had commanded hundreds of battles in his long career. He had never lost one. But these humans were something new, something his experience had not prepared him for. "They are insane," he whispered. No rational beings would sacrifice so much. He was right about one thing. This was not rational. It was something deeper and older than logic. It was the love of a mother for her children, multiplied by 1,000 humans who felt that love in their own hearts. By the 7th hour, the Voran defensive fleet was broken. Half their ships were destroyed. The rest were damaged, scattered, fleeing into the darkness of space. The way to the research station was open, but Yuna did not celebrate. She looked at her own losses with a heavy heart. 50 more ships destroyed. Thousands of humans dead. The price of this victory was written in blood. "The station shields are still active," Hana reported. "Our weapons cannot penetrate them." "Then we go inside," Yuna said. "Prepare boarding teams." The Iron Dawn and 20 other ships approached the massive research station. It hung in space like a metal moon, covered in towers and antennae and weapons that pointed in every direction. But its defenders were gone, destroyed or fled, and its shields could not stop small assault craft from landing on its surface. Yuna led the boarding team herself. She wore combat armor and carried a weapon that felt familiar in her hands. She had not fought on the ground in many years, but today she would not stay behind. The inside of the station was a maze of corridors and chambers. Voran scientists and guards tried to stop the human teams, but they were pushed aside like leaves in a storm. The humans moved with purpose and fury, clearing room after room, searching for the prisoners. "Admiral," called a soldier named Ji-hoon. "I found something." Yuna ran to his position. He was standing in front of a heavy door marked with Voran symbols. Through a small window, she could see movement inside. Small shapes. Human shapes. Her heart stopped. "Get this door open," she ordered. Her voice shook for the first time since the beginning of this mission. Now, the engineers worked quickly. They placed explosives on the door hinges and stood back. The blast echoed through the corridor, and the door fell inward with a crash. Yuna stepped through before the smoke cleared. And there, in the corner of a small cell, she saw them. Dayan and Jiwoo huddled together on a metal bed. They were thin and scared, dressed in simple white clothes. Their eyes were wide, not understanding what was happening. Then Dayan recognized her mother's face. "Mama!" The little girl ran across the room and threw herself into Yuna's arms. A moment later, Jiwoo followed, wrapping his small arms around both of them. Yuna held her children so tightly she was afraid she might break them. Tears streamed down her face, washing away weeks of rage and fear. "I am here," she whispered. "Mama is here. No one will hurt you ever again." Around them, the human soldiers watched in silence. Some of them cried. Some of them smiled. All of them understood why they had come so far and fought so hard. This was the moment. This was the reason. But the mission was not complete. Yuna had made a promise not just to herself, but to humanity. The Varans would pay for what they had done. They would learn a lesson that would echo through their history for 10,000 more years. She handed her children to a trusted soldier. Take them to the ship. Keep them safe. Where are you going, Mama? Dan asked, fear returning to her eyes. Yuna kissed her forehead gently. I have one more thing to do. Then we go home. I promise. She turned and walked deeper into the station. Behind her, her soldiers followed. They had come for the children. But they would leave with something more. They would leave with a message written in fire and destruction. A message that said, never again. The research station had more secrets than just two human children. In its deepest chambers, Yuna and her team found records of experiments conducted on dozens of species over thousands of years. They found technology stolen from civilizations that no longer existed. They found weapons designed to control, enslave, and destroy. Download everything, Yuna ordered. The galaxy will see what the Varans have done. And then she set the charges. The explosion was visible from space. The research station died in a ball of white fire, taking with it 3,000 years of Varan scientific advancement. It was a blow the Empire would feel for generations. On the bridge of the Iron Dawn, Yuna held her children close and watched the fire fade. They were together again. They were safe, but she was not finished yet. The Varans had started this war. She would end it, on their terms. The first Voron patrol never saw them coming. 3 Voron ships moved through the darkness of space near the border of their territory. They were small vessels, designed for watching and waiting. For thousands of years, no enemy had dared to enter Varan space. These patrols were tradition more than necessity. The crews were bored, comfortable, certain of their safety. Admiral Yuna had studied everything humanity knew about the Varans. She knew their patrol patterns. She knew their communication frequencies. She knew the blind spots in their sensor networks. And she knew exactly where to strike first. The Iron Dawn emerged from behind an asteroid field, followed by 12 other ships. They moved in perfect silence, their engines running cold to avoid detection. By the time the Varan sensors noticed anything strange, it was already too late. Fire, Yuna said. The new weapons that Mireille had brought worked exactly as promised. Bolts of energy tore through Varan shields like they were made of paper. The first enemy ship exploded in a ball of white light. The second tried to turn and run, but a precise shot from Captain Taiho's ship disabled its engines. The third managed to send a distress signal before being destroyed. Signal sent, reported Hana at communications. The Varans know we are here. Good, Yuna said. I want them to know. I want them to understand that their borders mean nothing to us. She looked at the tactical display. The disabled Varan ship was drifting slowly, its crew still alive inside. Board that ship, she ordered. I want prisoners. I want information. Teams of human soldiers moved through the airlock into the Varan vessel. What they found surprised them. The Varan crew members were hiding in corners, their 4 eyes wide with something humans rarely saw in that species. Fear. The Varans had never been bored before. For 10,000 years, their enemies had been too afraid to get close. They had weapons that could destroy ships from a distance. They had shields that could block almost anything. They had never needed to prepare for close combat, but humans had spent their entire history fighting up close. They had invented 1,000 ways to hurt each other with knives, fists, and fury. And now they brought that knowledge to a new enemy. The Voron captain was brought before Admiral Yuna in chains. He was taller than her by 2 feet, with gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked in confusion. He had never imagined standing in chains on an enemy ship. Such things did not happen to Varans. Where are the children? Yuna asked. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were ice. The Voron captain made a sound that might have been laughter. You think this changes anything? You have destroyed 3 small ships. The Empire has thousands. When the High Council learns of this, they will send a fleet to wipe your species from the galaxy. Yuna leaned closer. I asked you a question. 2 human children were taken from the colony called Haven. Where are they? I do not know about any children, the captain said. And if I did, I would not tell you. Your kind are animals, specimens. You should feel honored that the Empire finds you interesting enough to study. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to her soldiers. Take him to a cell. Perhaps he will remember more after some time to think. She paused. And make sure he understands that his time is limited. News of the attack spread through Voron space like fire through dry grass. 3 patrol ships destroyed. 1 captured. Human invaders moving through their territory. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. And yet it was happening. The Voron High Council met an emergency session on their capital world. Lord Kryn, the eldest member, slammed his fist against the ancient stone table. Who are these creatures? He demanded. How dare they enter our space? They are called humans, reported a military commander. A young species from a distant sector. We have been studying them for several decades. They are physically weak, technologically primitive, and until now, they have seemed harmless. Harmless? Lord Kryn's 4 eyes narrowed. They destroyed 3 of our ships. An unexpected development, the commander admitted. Their weapons appear to be new designs, capable of penetrating our standard shields. We are analyzing the attack now. Another council member, Lady Ven, spoke up. Why would they attack us? What do they want? According to reports, the Science Division took 2 young humans from one of their colonies for study. The children belonged to the commander of their attacking fleet. The council fell silent. Lady Ven made a strange expression that might have been surprise. They launched an invasion because we took 2 children? It appears so. Lord Kryn stood and walked to the window. Outside, the great city of the Voron capital spread across the horizon. Towers of crystal and metal reached toward the sky. Ships moved through the air in perfect order. Everything was exactly as it had been for thousands of years. These humans are insane, he said finally. No rational species would risk everything for 2 individuals. We must crush them quickly, before their madness spreads. He turned back to the council. Send the 5th Fleet to intercept them. I want these humans destroyed within the week. The 5th Fleet was a force of 300 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in the human fleet. They moved through space like a wall of death, confident in their strength. But Admiral Yuna had expected this response. They are coming, reported Taiho at the strategy meeting. 300 ships, heading straight for our last known position. How long until they arrive? Yuna asked. 20 hours. Yuna studied the map. Her fleet of 200 ships was scattered across a wide area, raiding supply lines and destroying isolated targets. They had been causing chaos, but they could not face the 5th Fleet in direct combat. We cannot fight them head-on, she said. Not yet. We need to slow them down, confuse them, make them afraid. How will we make the Vorns afraid? Asked a captain named Yunji. She was young, barely 30. But she commanded a fast attack ship that had already destroyed 6 Voron vessels. We show them something they have never seen before, Yuna replied. We show them that their size means nothing, that their history means nothing, that every advantage they thought they had is just an illusion. She outlined her plan. The human fleet would split into small groups. Each group would attack from a different direction, hitting and running, never staying in one place long enough for the Vorons to catch them. They would target fuel supplies, communication stations, anything that would slow the enemy down. We fight like shadows, Una said. We strike and vanish. We let them chase us through their own territory, never knowing where we will appear next. We make them so tired, so frustrated, so angry that they make mistakes. And then? Taiho asked. Then we find where they are keeping my children. And we hit them with everything we have. The plan worked better than anyone had hoped. The Voron Fifth Fleet was designed for large battles, for overwhelming enemies with pure force. They had never faced an enemy that refused to stand and fight. Every time they moved toward one human group, another group would appear somewhere else, destroying a supply station or ambushing a patrol. The Voron commander grew frustrated. His 4 eyes burned with anger as report after report came in. A fuel depot destroyed. A communication satellite disabled. 3 more patrol ships missing. These creatures fight without honor, he complained to his officers. They refused to face us properly. But the humans did not care about Voron ideas of honor. They cared about winning. They cared about survival. They cared about 2 small children trapped somewhere in enemy territory. And slowly, day by day, they pushed deeper into Voron space, on the Iron Dawn. Una received a new piece of intelligence from a captured Voron officer. He had broken under questioning, terrified by these strange creatures who seemed to have no fear. The children are on the science station orbiting the 4th planet of the Kren system. Una read aloud. Heavy guard. Multiple shield layers. Direct approach impossible. She looked at the map, at the distance between her fleet and the science station. They would have to pass through the heart of Voron territory. They would have to face their strongest defenses. She thought about Dayan and Jiwoo. She thought about their faces. Their voices. The way they had looked at her when she left for her last deployment. Come back soon. Mother, Dayan had said. I will, she had promised. I always do. She had never broken a promise to her children. She would not start now. Set course for the Kren system, she ordered. All ships. We are done playing games. It is time to end this. The message traveled at the speed of light through a network of relay stations. It bounced from colony to colony, from ship to ship, from one corner of human space to another. Within 6 hours, every human alive had heard Admiral Una's words. On Earth, in the Great Hall of Fleet Command, the leaders of humanity gathered. There were admirals in crisp uniforms, politicians in expensive suits, and diplomats who had spent their lives talking instead of fighting. They sat around a long table made of dark wood, and they argued. This is madness, said Director Park, the head of diplomatic relations. He was a thin man with gray hair and worried eyes. The Voron Empire has existed for 10,000 years. They have weapons we cannot even understand. If we attack them, they will destroy us. Then what do you suggest? General Minho slammed his hand on the table. He was a large man with scars on his face and fire in his heart. We do nothing? We let them take our children and smile? I suggest we negotiate, Director Park said. We send a message. We ask for the children back. We offer them something in return. You want a bargain for children like they are goods to be traded? A new voice cut through the room. Everyone turned. Admiral Una stood in the doorway. She had traveled for 18 hours without sleep to reach this meeting. Her uniform was perfect, but her eyes were red. She walked to the table and looked at each person there. My children are not a negotiation, she said. They are not a diplomatic matter. They are Dan and Jiwoo. They are 6 years old. They like to run in tall grass and watch the stars at night. And right now, they are in the hands of creatures who see them as experiments. Director Park shifted in his seat. Admiral, I understand your pain. But we must think of the bigger picture. If we go to war with the Vorons, millions could die. Millions will die if we do nothing, Una replied. Not today, not tomorrow, But soon, the Varans took my children because they think we are weak, because they think they can do whatever they want to us. If we let them be right, they will come back. They will take more children, more colonies, more of everything we have. She placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. I am not asking permission. I am telling you what will happen. I will take my fleet into Varan space. I will find my children. And I will make sure the Varans never touch another human again. Your fleet? Director Park laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have 12 ships, Admiral. The Varans have thousands. Then I will find more ships. The room fell silent. General Minho looked at her with respect in his eyes. He had known Yuna for 20 years. He had seen her fight battles that should have been impossible to win. The fleet will not officially support an invasion of Voron space, said Fleet Commander Jung-ho. He was the highest-ranking officer in the room. An old man with white hair and tired eyes. The politicians will not allow it. Yuna nodded slowly. I understand. However, Jung-ho continued, if individual captains choose to follow you on their own, that is their choice. And if certain supply ships happen to get lost and end up in your path, well, mistakes happen. Director Park stood up in anger. This is irresponsible. You are talking about starting a war. The war has already started, Yuna said. The Varans started it when they touched my children. I am simply going to finish it. She turned and walked toward the door. Before she left, she looked back one more time. Every parent in this room, every person who has ever loved a child, ask yourself one question. What would you do if it was your son or daughter on that ship? What would you burn to get them back? She did not wait for an answer. She did not need one. The next 48 hours changed everything. Yuna's message had reached every corner of human space, and humanity answered in ways no one expected. Captain Taiho was the first to arrive. He commanded a small group of 5 warships, old but well-maintained. He had served under Yuna 10 years ago, and he had never forgotten her leadership. When he heard her call, he did not hesitate. Admiral, he said when they met on the Iron Dawn, my ships are yours. My crew is yours. Tell me where to point our guns. You understand this might be a one-way trip, Yuna said. Taiho smiled grimly. I have 2 daughters at home. When I look at them, I see your children. If I do not fight today, what kind of father am I tomorrow? More ships came. Some were military, their captains choosing to follow Yuna despite the lack of official orders. Others were civilian cargo ships, mining vessels, transport craft. Their captains were not soldiers, but they had skills. They had resources. They had rage. A woman named Myrae arrived with 3 ships full of weapons and engineers. She had worked in weapons development for 20 years before retiring. When she heard Yuna's message, she came out of retirement. I have been designing weapons that the fleet was too scared to build, she told Yuna. Weapons that can punch through Voron shields. I never thought I would see them used. Now I hope I get to watch. A man named Dongwu brought ships filled with medical supplies and doctors. Someone will need to put people back together, he said simply. By the end of the second day, Yuna had a fleet of over 200 ships. It was still small compared to the Varan Empire, but it was more than she had dared to hope for. She gathered her captains in the main hall of a space station near the edge of human territory. They were a strange mixed professional soldiers standing next to miners, decorated officers sitting beside cargo pilots. But they all had the same look in their eyes. They were ready. I will not lie to you, Yuna said. Many of us will not come back. The Varans are powerful. They have technology we do not fully understand. They have numbers we cannot match. She paused and looked around the room. But we have something they do not. We have a reason to fight that goes beyond politics, beyond territory, beyond power. We fight for children. We fight for family. We fight because there are some things in this universe that cannot be forgiven. She activated a holographic map. It showed Varan space, a vast area filled with planets, stations, and patrol routes. The Varans think we are weak because we are young. They think we will break because we are small. They are wrong. Human history is filled with moments when the small stood against the large and won. When the weak found strength they did not know they had. When ordinary people did extraordinary things. Her voice grew harder, sharper. The Varans took something from us. Now we will take something from them. Their peace, their safety, their belief that they are untouchable. We will move through their space like fire through dry wood. We will not stop until we find those children. We will not rest until every Voran knows the price of their mistake. Captain Taiho stood and raised his fist. For the children. The room erupted. 200 captains, soldiers, engineers, and pilots, all of them shouting as one. For the children. For humanity. Yuna watched them with fierce pride burning in her chest. These people had left their homes, their families, their safe lives, all to follow her into hell. She would not waste their sacrifice. She thought of Dayan and Jiwoo. She thought of their smiles, their laughter, the way they held hands when they were scared. She thought of them alone and afraid in some Varan laboratory. Hold on, she thought. Mother is coming. And nothing in this galaxy will stop me. The fleet prepared to move. 200 ships powered up their engines, checked their weapons, and pointed their noses toward enemy territory. The Varans had no idea what was coming. They had studied human biology, human technology, human history. But they had never understood the one thing that made humans truly dangerous. Love. Human who loved. Something would burn entire worlds to protect it. And mother's love was the most dangerous force in the universe. The planet Haven was a quiet place. It was one of humanity's smallest colonies, far from Earth and far from the busy trade routes that connected human worlds. Only 3,000 people lived there. They were farmers, scientists, and families who wanted a simple life under a peaceful sky. The twin children of Admiral Yuna loved this place. Dan was 6 years old, with bright eyes and a curious mind. Her brother Jiwoo was born just 3 minutes after her. He was quieter than his sister, but brave in his own way. Their grandmother Sunja had brought them to Haven, while their mother served in the fleet. It was supposed to be safe here. It was supposed to be far from danger. On that morning, the sky was orange and gold. Dan ran through the tall grass near their small house. Jiwoo chased after her, laughing. Their grandmother watched from the porch, smiling at the simple joy of children at play, but none of them saw the ship. The Varan Empire had been watching humanity for decades. The Varans were an old species. They had ruled over 40 star systems for thousands of years. They were tall and gray-skinned, with 4 eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. They believed themselves to be the most advanced beings in the galaxy. Other species were tools to them, or experiments, or slaves. The Varans had studied humans from a distance. They found humans strange. Humans were physically weak compared to many species. They had short lives. Their technology was young. But something about humans made the Varan scientists curious. Humans spread fast. They adapted to any world. They survived things that should have killed them. The Varan High Council wanted to understand why. Commander Gorel of the Varan Science Division received his orders 3 months before that peaceful morning on Haven. He was told to find human specimens for study. Young ones were preferred. Their biology would be easier to examine, and they would be easier to control. Gorel chose Haven because it was isolated. No fleet ships nearby. No defense stations. Just a small colony of farmers who thought they were safe. The Varan ship dropped from the clouds without warning. It was small and fast, painted in colors that made it hard to see against the sky. Goro watched through his screen as his soldiers prepared to descend. Dan saw the shadow first. She stopped running and looked up. The ship was strange and wrong. It did not look like any human vessel she had ever seen in pictures. She grabbed her brother's hand. "Jiwo," she whispered. "Run!" They ran toward the house, but they were too slow. The Voron soldiers moved like ghosts. They wore armor that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. Before Daeon could scream, a cold hand grabbed her arm. Another soldier took Jiwoo. Grandmother Sunja heard the sound of the ship. She came running from the porch, her old legs moving as fast as they could. She saw the soldiers, and she did not hesitate. She picked up a farming tool and swung it with all her strength. The Varan soldier barely felt the blow against his armor. He pushed her aside like she was made of paper. Sunja fell hard against the ground. "Grandmother!" Dan screamed. The soldiers carried the children toward the ship. Dan kicked and bit and fought with everything she had. Jiwoo was silent, his eyes wide with fear, but he held his sister's hand and would not let go. Commander Garo watched the capture with satisfaction. 2 healthy specimens, young and strong, perfect for the experiments. He ordered his pilot to leave immediately. Sunja lay in the grass, watching the ship rise into the sky. Tears streamed down her face. Her body was broken, but her mind was clear. She had only one thought. She had to tell Yuna. She had to tell the children's mother what had happened. The colony's emergency signal went out within minutes. It traveled across space, jumping from relay to relay, until it reached the Fleet Command Station near Earth. Admiral Yuna was on the bridge of her ship, the Iron Dawn, when the message arrived. She was a woman of 42 years, with short black hair and eyes that had seen 100 battles. She had served humanity's fleet for 20 years. She had fought pirates, protected colonies, and earned every medal that could be given. But at this moment, she was not thinking about duty or honor. She was thinking about her children. The message was short. Her mother's voice, weak and broken. "They took them, Yuna. Strange soldiers. A ship I have never seen. They took Dan and Jiwoo." The bridge fell silent. Every officer knew about the Admiral's children. They had seen pictures on her desk. They had heard her talk about visiting them when her tour was finished. Yuna's hands gripped the arms of her chair. Her knuckles turned white. For a long moment, she did not speak. She did not move. The only sound was the quiet hum of the ship's engines. Then she stood. "Get me fleet command," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Something that made her officers feel cold. "Admiral," her first officer Taiho said carefully, "we should wait for more information. We do not know who—" "I know who," Yuna said. "I have studied every species in this sector of the galaxy. Gray skin, 4 eyes, ships that bend light." She turned to face him. "The Varan Empire." Taiho felt his stomach drop. The Vorans were not like the pirates they usually fought. The Vorans had a fleet of thousands. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had ruled their part of the galaxy since before humans learned to make fire. "Admiral," he said, "if it is the Vorans, then this is a matter for diplomats. We cannot. They took my children." Yuna's voice cut through the air like a blade. "There will be no diplomats. There will be no negotiations. There will only be what comes next." She walked toward the communication station. The young officer there, a woman named Hana, looked up with fear in her eyes. "Open a channel," Yuna said. "All frequencies. Every human ship, station, and colony. I want everyone to hear this." Hana's fingers trembled as she worked the controls. "Channel open, Admiral." Yuna stood straight. She looked into the camera that would carry her image across the stars. And when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of a mother's love and a mother's rage. This is Admiral Yuna of the Iron Dawn. Today, the Voron Empire took something precious from us. They took human children from a peaceful colony. They believe we are weak. They believe we will do nothing. She paused. Her eyes burned with a fire that could not be measured. They are wrong. Every ship that can fly, every soldier that can fight, every human that believes in protecting our own, I call on you now. The Vorons wanted to know what humanity is made of. Her voice dropped to something cold and hard. We will show them. The message ended. Across 1,000 worlds, humans looked at their screens. They heard the pain in her voice. They saw the fury in her eyes. And something stirred inside them, something ancient and powerful. The Voron Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had studied humanity's technology, their biology, their history. But they had failed to understand one simple truth. You do not take a human's children. You do not take them and expect to survive.